as we begin, I want to show you that this actually is a piece of masonite, a really inexpensive piece of masonite that came with a frame, a 16 by 20 frame that I got from Hobby Lobby. So I decided to use it, and I've put 2 coats of light buttermilk down, and then I drilled about a 1/4 inch hole, about a 1/2 inch in on both sides, so that I can put my string in there. So I have a fairly large brush, a very old one, and I use this for doing base coating, and obviously I've done it for staining and other things. And so the first thing I'm going to do is put some extender on here. So I'm going to put it on my palette, and I'm using the Americana Drying Time Extender Medium, but you can use any form of extender that works well with acrylic paints. And I'm going to just apply it quickly. Okay, then I've got 2 colors out. I have Salem Blue and Spa Blue out. I have some really big puddles, and hopefully I'll have enough to create the entire gradient. So we're going to start at the top and work down, and then I'll pick up lighter color as we're going to go, and I'm going to try to create a gradient. And I don't care if this is imperfect, because this I'm really creating more as a social painting piece, kind of like a sip and paint piece. And so I wanted it to be for a beginner painter and a really fun home decor project, and you can alter it, and I'll talk about different ways that we can change it around for your home. But I'm just, right now, this is just all fairly even. I'm not trying to create any texture at all. I picked up a little bit of a hair, so I'll just use the corner of my brush to pick that up and then go back over it. And if you see any brush marks, you can just work them out. Now I'm going to go into my Spa Blue, and I'm coming down. And I'm using a dirty brush, so I still have some of the original Salem Blue in the brush. And so now that I've got this in here, like here, I'm going to work it up and get rid of that line. And I'm using a lot of pressure. Normally you'll hear me say, don't use too much pressure. But in this case, I want to blend that line away, and I think that did a fairly good job. And we're going to just keep bringing this down. Now I'm actually going to just pick up a little bit of water in my brush, because I want this to fade away. So I want this to somewhat resemble a sky. And we always know that the greatest amount of color is as you look up, and then as you look more towards the horizon line, it fades away. And I'm just trying to make this even, and I can tell my extender is starting to dry on me. Either that, or I didn't put as much down towards the bottom as I did towards the top. So I picked up just a little bit of water to give me a little bit more. And I guess I could have picked up a little bit of extender in my brush too. That would have been even better. I'm just so used to going in the water. And now I'm using a very soft touch, and I'm just blending back into here. So I like what I'm seeing. It's, for the most part, kind of looks like a sky. It's going from dark to light. Now we're going to let this dry, and I'll be right back. I thought I'd use my time while the background's drying to make our banners. And so what I've done is I've taken some mixed media paper, and this is by Strathmore, and it's just perfect for painting on, and it really holds up. So I know that even though it will just be hanging, and I'm not going to be decoupaging this, it will still be strong enough if I did need to cut a piece of masonite or something like that. And so I did the backs, but then on the front, I came in and I put a coat of the chalkboard paint over it. That just gives it a little bit more tooth, even though I think black paint works perfectly fine. And I'm going to use I have 4 of these that I've cut. And I'm going to simply come in and center this, and I'm going to spell the word love. So I'm using 4 of them. You could use hope. You know, if you wanted 5, you could make them a little bit smaller and do the word dream. You know, it's really up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go, and I'm using a General's chalk pencil. And my good friend Judy Westergaard created this technique where you just do lettering with chalking. And it's just so easy to do. So, you know, what's really nice is if it's not level or whatever, then you can just wipe it off if you want to. But I like this. And so I'm going to come in, and you can fill it in any way you want. I'm going to just color it in, and I have a duller one, and I'll keep the duller one. And so once we have the outside lines, you could come in and just fill this in with paint. But I like the look of chalk, so I'm going to just kind of fill this in. And then once it's done, I will just spray it with a fixative, and it will be on here permanently, making lettering so much easier. Now, if you wanted to, you could make patterns on here. There's so many different things you could do, but I'm just coloring mine in. And what's really nice is if you go outside the lines, like I just went out there, and before I'm done, I'll just come in and clean that up before I spray it. Now what's really interesting is sometimes when you spray it, it does lighten up a little bit. So there are times where I'll go in and come in a second time with my chalk. So if you do not have a stencil, like I have these Personally Yours stencils by DecoArt, you could go in and just get a font that you like and print it out and then trace it onto here in the same manner using the chalk. Okay, then I'm going to finish the O, V, and the E, and I'll be back. So I put the E on, and I really don't like the gaps that it has in here, so I'm going to just continue this line. And because I really want it to look a little bit more like it's just one letter. And then I can continue and just color it in. So I'm not sure if you can see how it just got all smudged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply take one of my dry brushing brushes. And because they're a dome shape, I just put water in it. And I'm going to just go up and try to clean this up. And then if for some reason it doesn't come all nice and clean, but it is coming very clean, I can just also come in with some black really quick. But you can see that this is very forgiving and such an easy way to do letters. Okay, I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to spray this, and by then our background should be nice and dry. Well, I have to say that it really took a long time for the extender to dry, so I actually had to dry it with a hairdryer. What you want to look for, and I can see even now that there's just a little bit of shininess on that, and that could mean that I could lift that as I'm painting, so I'm going to have to be very careful as I do the next step here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some text to the background. What I did is I took the Salem blue and I simply mixed some black into it, and I got this interesting greenish gray bluish color, and that will be just fine for the text. It was probably equal amounts of both. Maybe a little bit more Salem. Now I have a fairly large stencil brush and some paper towel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my brush and then remove a lot of it on the paper towel. The main reason is if you've ever stenciled and it bleeds underneath, it's because you have left too much paint in your brush. And so what you want to do is you want to look for more of a gradation of paint. But what I always do is I always come in when I begin, I pounce. Now I'm not going to try to cover this entire background. I want to give the indication of some text because it's a mixed media piece, and I want to create a little bit more interest in the background. Now there's different types of mixed media. There's a mixed media style which has tons and tons of layers and lots of texture on it. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just combining a variety of mediums together, which makes it a mixed media or a multimedia piece. So now that I know that I have very little paint in my brush, I'm doing a dry brushing technique, and I'm just swirling it. So what I can do is I can push my hand down and see how this looks. And I like that color really well. And so I'm going to just be very random with this. I don't, like I said, I don't want to cover the whole thing. We're going to come in with clouds. When we come in with the clouds, we'll be covering a lot of this too. So I'm just keeping this as random as possible. And I'm going to play some music while I do this. Okay, so now I'm going to just put out a big puddle of, and this is just warm white. Any kind of white that you have will be fine. And I'm going to take my dirty dry brushing brush, or my dirty stencil brush, and if you can see, I've just mixed just a little bit of that color into this, so it's a very light gray blue. Only this time I'm not really going to take a lot of paint out, and I'm going to start swirling. And we're going to start making some wispy edges. And this is going to be our clouds. See, I don't want to make them perfectly solid at the top. I think I need a little bit more of this darker color in here. You don't want to get too light too fast. And this is going to really be a good exercise for your wrist and probably make you really tired. But you can see now how the lettering is just staying in the background. Yeah, I'm liking some of this gray in here. We're going to let it dry, and you can see I'm losing all kinds of hairs. So I'm not going to worry about those. I'll take those out when I'm done. That's just the nature of stencil brushes, is that you just lose a lot of hairs with them. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up some of this lighter blue color, which looks like it's bright white. And this right here is just paint that has started to dry in my brush. So again, I just want some wispy little edges up over here. And some wispiness over here. Okay, I'm going to rinse out my brush and we're going to let this dry. Okay, so I'm going to just come in, and this is, I just dipped into the white. My brush is fairly wet, and I'm just going to come in and highlight some areas. I am not trying to make these perfect clouds, we're just trying to make some fun clouds. So I need to take a little bit more paint out of my brush now, because now is when I'll start dry brushing, and I want very little paint in the brush. And that's where I get it just a little bit more wispiness. I just want some softness along the outside edges. Okay, I have just hints of the lettering coming through every now and then, and that's what I wanted to see. I'm still seeing a lot of the lettering here, but again, we're going to be covering a lot of this up as we go on. So next thing we want to do is get our bird stencil. Now I'm going to be using this two different directions. I decided that I wanted to bring in a little bit of a branch up over here. And I'm going to use my black for this. Now I can use my stencil brush again, or I can use a, we call these mushroom sponge, and this has been slightly dampened. And I like using these when I'm doing a larger area. But it's really important that you load this properly. So I load it and then I offload it. And right now, if you can see that, it's still kind of shiny and there's little puddles in there. You work it into the sponge until it almost looks like a stamp pad. And there's absolutely no bubbles on it at all. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to try to just get the branches, because I don't want the leaves right now. I don't know that I want the leaves at all. Now I could tape it over it, but what's really neat is you can just go on the side. Now I need to be careful because there was a lot of paint right there, and I'm hoping that didn't bleed under. You can use a round brush too. And I have a video that's all about creating line work. And so if you didn't have the stencil at home, you could pull in the lines. So over here, I purposely left that one and I wanted to show you. Now, that was dragging, so I needed a little bit more water in it. Okay, let's pull maybe just a few more branches up over here. Convinced here that this is an actual tree branch. And I think that looks pretty good. Now if we wanted to, we could pull another one over here on the other side. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just pulling this with my brush and I'm lifting the pressure as I go. And you want to think about the letter Y when you're doing these. These all form either little V's or little the letter Y as you're forming them. So right now the stencil is going this way. So hopefully, let's come over here because I'm sure that's still wet. We'll flip him around and we'll put a little small bird right over here. And we're going to have him just resting on this. I want to see his whole body. So now I'm going to go back into my sponge and I'm going to load it. And I'm going to make sure that there's not too much paint in it because it will bleed underneath. Okay, and I think that's a little bit wet. Hopefully it will be fine. Just a little bit wet. So what you can do, if if you have some irregular edges like that, is use your number 3 round. Make sure you don't have too much paint in your brush. And just kind of come along the outside edge and fix it just like that. Make sure he's connected to the branch. Okay, he looks pretty good. So I'm going to work on this side and give that whole area just a little bit more time to dry. And I know I want to have 2 birds. I'm going to have this one and this one. So I'm going to use my sponge again. And I'm reloading it again. And I will reload this multiple times to make sure that I have enough paint. I just don't want to make sure, I want to make sure it's not too wet. And then I'm going to lift that up. That looks pretty good. Okay, so again, I've got these 2 holes, and I know that my bird's going to need to be resting on there fairly well, because I'm going to pull my rope about here. So I need to make sure I have my placement of my bird right. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my sponge and just stencil him in. And again, what you can do is you can cover up all these other little holes. The holes of the stencils are called islands. And if you want to take the time to do that, it makes it a whole lot easier. I'm just controlling it by putting, because I have to make sure I don't go over here, and I have to make sure I don't go into that leaf. Okay. He has a few bumps on his back where I came in a little bit heavy. So I'll just smooth this out a little bit using my number 3 round. So see how I start on the bird and then work out towards the outside edge. I want to make sure that this doesn't grow. I'm thinking maybe I want to come in and add just a little bit more of a branch over here. To indicate that there's a tree over here. I don't want that to come over any farther because we don't want to distract too much from these birds. So now it's time to bring in our cord. Okay, so now this is jute, and I've already painted this black. It was all natural jute. And so I'm going to just stick it into the holes and pull it through. I'll do one side and then the other side. So that's nice and taut. So see, I've already sprayed these and with the fixative, and so I don't have to worry about the chalk bleeding at all. I found these cute little clothespins at the Dollar Tree, and so they're just plain wood. So I painted them black, and I've laid out. I want to make sure that I keep my letters so that they're going to be not going into the frame, because the frame is going to go over here. So I'm going to just take these and clip them on. I think this is looking really cute. It's going to be perfect for a laundry room or a child's room. And again, you can change it out. Now, if you want to go with more of an industrial look, you could do a shape like this with a bird and have stamps on it. And make it look aged. You could do the same thing with the lettering. You could stylize this any way that you want for your own home decor. This is kind of a classic design and would go with almost any decor, but there's no reason why you can't come in and age it and do some other things to definitely make it yours. You could add some more birds, but if you're going to add another bird over here, you would add another bird over here. You always want to have odd numbers. I happen to like it open like this. It's got nice clean lines. And then the focus really comes in on this lettering here. I do want to show you that I decided that I wanted to add just a little bit more of this text back in because I felt it was just a little bit too plain in here. And I didn't want to add more branches or birds. So I just brought in a little bit more text. And I feel as though that just gave it the balance that it needed to the design. I really hope you enjoyed this project because it was just a fun painting to do. You can do this with all of your friends. Get them together, have some wine, and have, you know, just your own sip and paint night. If you're new to my channel, I sure hope you'll subscribe. And please give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying these type of projects. And also I would love for you to share this with your friends. So please click that share button and let other people know that I have these type of videos available for them to enjoy. Also, please click on the bell because that way you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So we'll see you next time, and until then, may painting always bring you joy. Bye.